"Where do you mean the bank called about a loan I didn't sign for?" I asked, gripping my phone in the kitchen, heart pounding. "Your signature is on the home equity loan documents, Mrs. Reynolds," the bank rep replied calmly. "The $375,000 0 cents was disbursed 3 weeks ago." I felt the room spin. Our home, the Victorian craftsman Blake and I had poured our souls into, had been mortgaged without my knowledge or... I asked to see the documents. My voice was steady, but my stomach twisted. I never signed anything. Not for this. Not ever. "My name is Lillian Reynolds. I'm 37, an interior designer based in Portland, Oregon. I thought my biggest battle had been enduring fertility treatments, running a business, and building a home filled with love, but nothing prepared me for discovering that the man I trusted most had betrayed me in secret. Stay with me to see how I turned forged documents, an affair, and a dangerous lie into the blueprint for a brand new life, one designed on truth. We met in graduate school, bonded over long nights, fueled by caffeine and design critiques. Blake was confident, charismatic, and laser-focused on commercial architecture. I leaned toward the historic, the forgotten homes with stories embedded in their walls. While he admired sleek lines and new construction, I saw beauty in old beams, original moldings, and weathered brick. We were different, but we balanced each other. He joked that I had the heart and he had the hustle. It worked. We built a life on that balance. When we found the Victorian, we both knew. The paint was chipped, the foundation questionable, and the plumbing ancient. But it was perfect. It became our 5-year passion project. Every weekend we stripped woodwork, refinished floors, and argued about fixtures. Each room we restored felt like a vow to the life we were building. But some dreams refused to come easily. After 2 years of trying to conceive, we sought fertility treatments. Daily injections, procedures, hope followed by heartbreak. It wore on me. Blake attended appointments, held my hand, said all the right things, but slowly he grew more distracted. He claimed it was stress, the pressure of landing bigger clients. I believed him. When the pandemic hit, my interior design firm faced delays and cancellations. Blake stepped in financially, covering our mortgage. "What's mine is yours," he said, brushing away my guilt. It felt generous, supportive, but when my business rebounded stronger than ever, something shifted. He started questioning my spending, small things at first. He criticized my studio's renovation as too ambitious, suggested I delay hiring help, told me I was pushing too fast. He'd always admired my ambition. Now, it made him uncomfortable. Jealous, maybe. I wasn't sure. He changed the password on our shared spreadsheets. His phone, once left casually on the counter, never left his side. He took weekend site visits, but returned with clean boots. Our intimacy faded, explained away as exhaustion. I told myself we were just in a rough patch. Then came the subtle gaslighting. He started. Revising memories. "Didn't we agree not to remodel the kitchen this year? You told me you'd handle those bills, remember? But I didn't. I would have remembered." He questioned my memory, my priorities, even my tone. "You're overthinking again," he'd say, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. When my sister Jennifer's husband cheated, Blake shocked me by defending the man. "Nobody really knows what happens inside a marriage," he said. "It's never black and white." I remember sitting there, stunned. Who was this man? Despite the tension, I kept holding on. We had history, a shared home, dreams. I wasn't ready to give up. But slowly, the cracks deepened. Blake stopped joining me for restoration projects. He stopped talking about children altogether. His attention was elsewhere, though I didn't yet know where. Looking back, I see it clearly. The distance, the withdrawal, the emotional sleight of hand. But at the time, I clung to the belief that our marriage was just going through a phase. That once the stress passed, the Blake I fell in love with would return. I was wrong. My hands trembled as I ended the call with the bank, a $375,000 0 cents loan secured against our home, with my signature on file. And yet I had never signed a thing. I stood frozen in the kitchen, heart racing, mind spinning. The Victorian we'd poured our lives into was now tied to something I hadn't agreed to. I had no idea where the money had gone, or who had authorized it, but one thing was certain. I had to find out the truth. I walked slowly to our shared desktop computer, hoping Blake had left something open, some clue that would explain what was happening. The screen was still lit, his email app open, which was rare. He was meticulous about logging out. A subject line caught my eye. Closing documents, Jasmine Winters. The preview read, "The condo closing is scheduled for Friday. I can't wait to see the look on..." And then it cut off. My stomach dropped. Gondo? Jasmine? I didn't recognize the name, but the implication was obvious. Before I could search further, I heard the front door open. Blake's key turned smoothly, his footsteps light against the hardwood floor. I clicked out of the email quickly, my breath catching in my throat. He entered the room with a smile, setting down his briefcase like it was any other evening. "Hey babe," he said, loosening his tie. "How was your day?" I forced a smile. Interesting. The bank called, something about a loan. Just for a split second, I saw it, a flicker of alarm in his eyes. A micro excess here, that didn't match his words. "A loan," he repeated, furrowing his brow as if trying to remember something distant. "That must be a mistake. I'll call them tomorrow." I nodded slowly, watching his movements. He poured himself a drink with deliberate calmness, then casually changed the subject. But I noticed how his phone never left his hand. He kept it screened down on the counter. When a message buzzed, he picked it up immediately and disappeared briefly into the hallway. He was hiding something. I could feel it. That night, as we sat on the couch watching a show neither of us really followed, I paid attention. His gaze lingered on his phone more than on the television. When he thought I wasn't looking, he smirked faintly at whatever was on the screen. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I knew if I accused him without proof, he'd deny everything, maybe even gaslight me into questioning myself. Instead, I made a silent decision. I would gather every piece of evidence before saying a word. He wasn't going to talk his way out of this. I would know where the money went. I would know who Jasmine Winters was, and when the time came, I would confront him on my terms, with facts he couldn't rewrite. In that moment, something shifted. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was focused, strategic, ready. The next morning, I was at the bank as soon as the doors opened. My hands were still unsteady as I sat across from Ms. Kemp, the loan officer. She looked professional and polite, but my presence clearly made her uneasy. After I explained the situation, she excused herself briefly and returned with a manila folder. "This is the application and approval paperwork," she said, spreading the documents on the desk. There it was, my signature. A close match, but not quite right. The slant was off, the loops too narrow. It was a forgery. "This isn't mine," I said, voice steady. "I never signed these papers." Miss Kemp frowned. "Your husband brought them in already signed. He said you were tied up with client work." I blinked. "You didn't call to verify." "We did," she said, checking the file. "At the number provided." I leaned forward. "What number?" She read it aloud. It wasn't mine. I'd never seen it before. I took a breath. "Where did the money go?" Ms. Kemp hesitated. "We're limited in what we can share." "This is fraud involving my name and property," I interrupted. "I'm not leaving until I know where it went." She gave in. After several keystrokes, she replied, "The funds were wired to Northwest Escrow Services on April 12th. That name struck me like lightning, the condo closing from the email. It was all connected. I left the bank and sat in my car, heart pounding. Before I could even start the engine, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Viewing the property today. It's perfect. Thanks for making this happen for us, Jay." Jay. Jasmine. I stared at the message, pulse pounding. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I typed, "New phone. Who is this?" The response came quickly. "Very funny, Blake. It's Jasmine. Still meeting at the condo at 2 a.m. So there it was. Confirmation. The forged documents, the money trail, the mistress, the condo, all of it, in black and white. I sat frozen for a moment, trying to process what I'd just uncovered. The betrayal was undeniable, but I didn't scream. I didn't call him. I didn't even cry. Not yet. Instead, I took screenshots of the messages, saved them to cloud storage, and backed them up to a flash drive. I photographed the forged documents at the bank. Every detail mattered. Every timestamp would be important. I didn't know yet how deep the betrayal went, but I knew this wasn't just about money. Blake had risked our home, our reputation, everything I had worked for, and for what? A condo with another woman? A secret life? I wasn't going to confront him half-pregnant. No, I would treat this like one of my design projects, carefully, methodically, with intention. The foundation had cracked, but I was already drawing up plans for something stronger. And this time, I would build it for me. At noon, I returned to our home while Blake was at a client meeting, or so he claimed. I went straight to our shared desktop, hoping to find a paper trail of what else he might have hidden. But when I tried to access our cloud storage, years of financial records, house projects, and tax documents, the password had been changed. I tried our shared spreadsheet file for monthly expenses. He was scrubbing his tracks, eliminating my access to anything that might expose him. I called our accountant, Martin, who had handled our taxes for the past 7 years. "Lillian," he greeted warmly. "Perfect timing. I was just about to follow up with Blake on the investment property. Did he send over that purchase agreement?" My heart dropped. "Remind me what you two discussed?" I asked carefully. Martin replied. "He said you two were buying a condo as a rental investment. Wanted to separate it from your personal finances for some reason. I advised against it, but he said you were both on the same page." I hung up, feeling dizzy. Blake was creating a false narrative that I had agreed to this property all along. If anyone questioned him, he'd have plausible deniability. He was making me a silent partner in his fraud. I searched public property records. It didn't take long. A condo in Jasmine Winter's name had a pending sale for $368,000. 0 cents. Almost the exact amount from the fraudulent loan. That was it. All the threads converged. Around 2:00 p.m., I drove to the address listed on the sale. It was a sleek, modern condo in the Pearl District, all glass and concrete. 20 minutes later, Jasmine arrived. She was striking, tall, athletic, early 30s. She walked in without buzzing, without hesitation. She belonged there. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I took photos. I took note of the time. I watched my husband play house with the woman he had betrayed me for, and used our home to finance it. Then I drove straight to my design studio and printed every screenshot, every bank document, every email. The next morning, I returned to the bank. Ms. Kemp looked pale when she saw me. "This is not my signature," I said again, pointing to the documents. "It's a forgery." She nodded. "We've launched a formal fraud investigation. The account is frozen. There's about $7,000, 0 cents in funds that haven't been dispersed." That same day, I sat in the office of Diane Harper, a lawyer known for handling high-stakes financial fraud divorces. She reviewed the documents in silence, her expression unreadable. "This is textbook," she said finally. "We need to act fast. Legal separation, asset protection, and police involvement." I filed a police report that afternoon. Detective Wilson, a seasoned officer who handled domestic fraud cases, took my statement. "We'll investigate immediately," she said. "But you should know, this isn't just civil. Forgery and identity theft are felonies. I exhaled slowly, the weight of that truth settling in. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a calculated, layered deception, one that could have ruined me if I hadn't uncovered it when I did. I had no idea what Blake's next move was going to be, but mine was already in motion. That night, I couldn't sleep. Blake's sudden shift in demeanor, the romantic cabin weekend, the takeout from my favorite restaurant, the lilies on the table, felt less like affection and more like strategy. Everything about him was too curated, too calculated. I lay beside him, eyes wide open in the dark, listening to the even rhythm of his breath. Around midnight, when he phone buzzed, the sliver of light under the door glowed for nearly 15 minutes. When he returned, I pretended to be asleep. But once his breathing evened again, I slipped out of bed and went straight to his laptop. It wasn't password protected, at least not yet. I opened the browser and stared at the search history. My blood turned to ice. Life insurance payout timeline. Spouse accident Oregon. Hiking accident undetectable poison. I sat back, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would punch through my ribs. The cabin weekend wasn't romantic at all. It wasn't about reconnection. Blake wasn't trying to fix our marriage. He was planning my death. I took out my phone and snapped pictures of every search result. Then I closed the laptop exactly how I found it and returned to bed, lying beside the man who might be plotting to kill me. First thing in the morning, I called Diane. "It's urgent," I said. "I need to see you now." An hour later, she reviewed the images on my phone. Her face hardened. "This isn't just fraud anymore," she said. "We need to get the police involved immediately. This could be attempted murder." I filed an emergency police report. Detective Wilson listened to my story, reviewed the search history evidence, and assured me she would assign a unit to monitor the situation. In the meantime, she advised me not to return home alone. I was granted an emergency restraining order. Blake was now legally prohibited from coming near me or the property. But I still needed to retrieve critical items from the house: documents, jewelry, my grandmother's photo albums. So I created a plan. I sent Blake a message asking to meet for lunch at a restaurant across town, suggesting we talk about the cabin weekend. He agreed quickly. Too quickly, he left the house at exactly 11:20. By 11:45, my sister Jennifer and I pulled into the driveway. With the restraining order in place and police notified, I felt a small degree of control. Jennifer stood watch while I gathered the essentials: passports, tax returns, irreplaceable heirlooms. In the bedroom, I retrieved the necklace my grandmother had given me on my wedding day. I was about to leave when I passed Blake's office. A message notification pinged on his computer. I glanced at the screen. Excited about our trip. She'll never figure it out, right? The sender was Jasmine. I didn't have time to react. From the front of the house, Jennifer hissed, "His car's coming back. He didn't go to the restaurant." I turned to bolt through the back door, only to hear the handle turn. The door opened and Jasmine walked in, holding grocery bags like she belonged there. Her eyes landed on me, then on Jennifer. "Who are you?" she snapped. "This is my house," I said evenly. She laughed. "No, it's ours. Blake and I are moving in this weekend." Before I could respond, the front door burst open. "Babe," I grabbed champagne for Blake's voice, cut off as he stepped into the room and saw the three of us standing there. And then, perfectly timed, my phone buzzed. A message from Blake's number. "She'll never figure it out." He had meant to send it to Jasmine. He'd sent it to me. I turned the screen around so he could see. Jennifer's eyes widened. Jasmine's face twisted in confusion. Blake's turned white. "I can explain," he started. "Let me," I interrupted. "Let me." I took a deep breath and began. "You forged my signature for a $375,000 0-cents loan. You used that money to buy Jasmine a condo. You charged $4,300 $300 0 cents on our joint credit card to buy her jewelry. You researched how to kill me. Jasmine reeled back. What is she talking about? The police have his search history, I added. They're on their way. And as if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. By the time Detective Wilson stepped through the front door, Blake's expression had fully transformed from stunned to desperate. He looked between me, Jasmine, and the officer, like a man watching the foundation of his life crack beneath him. Everything okay here, Mrs. Reynolds? Detective Wilson asked, hand resting casually near her hip. Mr. Reynolds was just leaving, I said calmly, handing her a copy of the restraining order. Blake sputtered. Wait, Lillian, can we at least talk? There's nothing left to talk about, I said, walking past him and opening the front door wide. You have 1 hour. Your things will be on the lawn. True to my word, Jennifer and I packed everything. His clothes, his monogrammed robe, the framed degrees he once insisted hang in the living room, even the stack of architectural magazines with his firm's features. It all went into boxes, carried down the porch, and placed squarely on the lawn. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Some came out and stood on their porches. In a quiet Portland street known for manicured lawns and Sunday potlucks, the sight of Blake Reynolds, once the golden boy architect being publicly discarded, was too juicy to ignore. His face flushed crimson as he tried to maintain dignity, standing beside his BMW while strangers watched him fall from grace. Jasmine had vanished the moment the police arrived. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't even look back. Whatever Blake had promised her clearly crumbled the moment reality hit. The condo that once symbolized their future quickly became a liability. The bank's fraud investigation moved fast, thanks to the documents I'd provided. The forged signature, the falsified contact information, and the suspicious wire transfer were damning. Blake was charged with bank fraud and identity theft. Faced with mounting evidence, he accepted a plea deal, financial restitution, probation, and a permanent criminal record. His firm, Reynolds Architectural, didn't wait for a court verdict. The day after his arraignment, they issued a formal press release stating he had resigned to focus on personal matters. Internally, he was quietly asked to clear out his office. No farewell party, no second chances. The Pearl District condo, the crown jewel of Blake's betrayal, was sold to repay the bank loan. After closing costs and fees, there was still a remaining debt of nearly $60,000, 0 cents. That balance became Blake's responsibility alone. He now lived in a small rented apartment on the outskirts of town. His BMW leased under our joint credit. As for me, I kept the house. The Victorian we'd restored together now belonged to me alone. I tore out the kitchen plans he'd drawn. I replaced the bedroom paint he'd chosen. I repainted the living room in bold tones he used to call too emotional. I wanted every inch of the home to reflect who I was now. Independent, clear-eyed, and unafraid to take up space. With every stroke of paint and rearranged piece of furniture, I purged his presence from the place he had tried to ruin. What once held memories of a shared life was now the symbol of my survival. Blake tried to destroy everything I'd built, but in doing so, he gave me something more powerful: freedom. And I made sure the next foundation I stood on was one no one else could shake. After the dust settled, I did what I'd always done. I picked up the pieces and got to work. But this time, the restoration wasn't just about homes. It was about me. I poured everything into Heritage Revival. The business had always been a passion project, but now it became my lifeline. Each design consultation was a reminder that I still had vision, skill, and purpose. Clients didn't see a woman who had been betrayed. They saw a professional who brought grace and clarity into the chaos of their homes. Word spread quickly. Stories of what had happened to me circulated quietly through Portland's historic neighborhoods, and with them came an unexpected wave of support. Homeowners who had once hesitated suddenly wanted to work with me. They admired my eye for beauty, yes, but more than that, they admired my strength. One of my earliest projects after the divorce was a brownstone owned by a widow who had been blindsided by her husband's secret debts. She confided in me during a walk through her home, her voice cracking as she shared how she'd almost lost everything. I didn't offer pity. Instead, I told her the truth. That she wasn't alone, and that rebuilding something beautiful after devastation was more than possible. That day, I realized something important. My story wasn't just mine. It was a blueprint for others too. Quietly, without fanfare, I became an advocate for women who'd been blindsided by financial betrayal. I spoke at small business groups and design workshops about safeguarding finances, signing every document personally, and trusting instincts. I even started a blog, personally jetting, and interwoven with real-life stories about resilience. The responses were overwhelming. Women from all over wrote to say thank you, not just for the inspiration, but for the validation. My own home transformed alongside me. I redesigned it, room by room, not to erase the past, but to honor the woman who had survived it. The dining room where Blake had once toasted to our future became a library filled with architectural books, family heirlooms, and bold artwork I never would have chosen before. The bedroom became a sanctuary, warm lighting, soft textures, no remnants of the man who once plotted my erasure. Even the front porch, once a symbol of shared dreams, now held planters bursting with color and a welcome mat that read, "Mine." I no longer asked for permission to make changes, to dream, to spend, to succeed. Everything I owned, my home, my business, my time, was mine again, fully and fiercely. I didn't need a partner to validate my worth. I'd become my own architect, not just of design, but of destiny. And while I never would have chosen the path that led here, I was finally standing on solid ground, one I built myself, brick by brick, board by board, decision by decision. No hidden signatures, no quiet betrayals. Just purpose, pride, and a future designed on my terms. I sat in my newly remodeled living room, the soft hum of a jazz record playing in the background, sunlight spilling through the tall windows. Everything around me had been touched by my hand, every color, every line, every choice made with intention. The space was serene now, no more shadows lingering in the corners, no more buried secrets hidden in floorboards or drawers. My home no longer felt like a museum of broken promises. It had become a sanctuary, a place that reflected who I truly was, not who I had pretended to be. For a long time, I believed Blake and I were building a life together, but looking back, I realized I had been building it alone. He'd been writing a different set of plans behind my back, full of deception, manipulation, and eventual escape. What he never understood was that I didn't need him to finish what I started. In fact, it was his betrayal that forced me to finally take ownership of everything. He forged my signature to trap me, but in doing so, he accidentally gave me the blueprint for freedom. I don't just restore homes, I reclaim lives. And this one? It's all mine. The walls around me don't whisper lies anymore. They stand tall in truth. And every time I walk through the front door, I'm reminded of the woman who saw through the facade, tore it down, and built something stronger. This isn't the end of my story. It's the home where my real life begins.